Hey, 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 it is an unstoppable day. Hey, if it's if it's Thursday, then it must be the Unstoppable Story Show with Terrence Leftridge. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know it's Thursday, and you normally see me on Tuesday, but this is a special edition of the Unstoppable Story Show with Terrence Leftridge. So come on in, come on in. I see Diamond Queen is already in. Let me know if you can see me live. If you see my face in the place, let me know. Let me know. I got my Unstoppable House Head shirt on. If you're from Chi-Town, you know about those house heads. Shout out to Nita Leftridge, who is the curator of these wonderful shirts. Let me stand up a little bit more so you can see it. Yeah, Unstoppable House Heads. So come on in. Come on in. We want to welcome you into the Unstoppable Story Show, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. Because I know, and I hope you know, that somebody is waiting to hear your story, your unstoppable story. My story may not make a difference to them, but your story may be the story that absolutely positively saves their life. So, hey, come on in, swipe and share, swipe and share. If you are watching this live, then here's what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and put in the hashtag live, hashtag LIVE. And if you are watching the replay, well, you know what you need to do. Go on, put in the hashtag replay, because we definitely go back and we look at all the comments in the sections for the Unstoppable Story Show. And I want to reach out to you and connect with you. If do nothing more but say thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to watch quality programming like the Unstoppable Story Show with Terrence Leftridge, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. So, hey, man, every week I tell you guys there is something that makes me have to live up to the name Unstoppable. And this week was no different. I've been traveling a lot in the month of October, different events, and I just came back from an event this weekend and got into town. The place I left was 84 degrees, and then I got back into town, it was about 48 degrees. So I live in Chi-Town, and sometimes Chi-Town can be a little dyslexic. I wanted it to still be 84 when I got here, but it was 48, and a brother was not prepared. And the hawk introduced itself to me once again and knocked me off my feet on Tuesday. So we couldn't have our regularly scheduled show that day. But hey, I may have stumbled, but I definitely was not stopped. And somebody's going to get that message. When you have the unstoppability, then that means you have the ability not to be stopped. That doesn't mean that you won't stumble. That doesn't mean that you won't fall. Doesn't mean that you might not have obstacles thrown in your way. But to have the ability not to be stopped when those obstacles come in your way, that's what makes you unstoppable. And so I am living testimony to being unstoppable. And I thank you so much for allowing me to come into your home each and every week and share with you these phenomenal guests. Now, because it tried to stop me, I'm not going to be talking as much as I usually do. And I'm drinking my special tea to keep my throat from being scratched up. But we have another phenomenal show for you this evening. So come on in, swipe and share. Tell your friends that we are live and on the air right now. We're paying homage, not celebrating, because sometimes that word is overused with what we're talking about tonight. But we're paying homage to October being Domestic Violence Survivors Month. And we have a special guest on tonight that is not only a domestic violence survivor, but she has taken her survival skills and now she has used it to provide support, to provide guidance, and to survive and to provide some needed acknowledgement of the issues that are going on in domestic violence in the hopes that she can help save some lives and bring attention to this epidemic that continues to surface each and every day in this country and around the world. She is none other than Whit Devereaux, and she is the author of the book Not by My Own. And it is a moving story of how a young woman experienced abuse, dealt with abuse, overcame abuse, and now is telling her story so that other people can overcome as well. It's a very moving book. And I met this woman at the annual APS Book Awards Gala. Shout out to Tennille Jackson of APS International. And she just blew me away when she talked about her story and when she won the award that night. And I felt it was important for her story to be heard. And I wanted you guys to hear her story as well. So without further ado, we are going to bring up to the stage the one, the only, the phenomenal Whit Devereaux. Mic check, mic check. Whit, can you hear us?
Ah, yes, I can hear you.
Hey, hey, hey. It is an unstoppable day. Whit, thank you so much for being on the show this evening.
Thanks for having me, Terrence. I am very happy to be here.
Well, we are so happy to have you. Thank you for rearranging your schedule. You were scheduled to be here on Tuesday, so I'm so glad that you were able to come back tonight for a special edition of the Unstoppable Story Show to share this powerful testimony and this powerful story with our audience. So, what I'm going to do first and foremost, for people who don't know you on the Unstoppable Story Show, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, okay?
Absolutely. So, again, my name is Whit Devereaux of whitdevereaux.com. I am an advocate for domestic violence as well as for parents of children with special needs. I am an award winning author. As Terrence mentioned, we met at the APS Book Awards where I won my award for my book. I also co-authored two additional anthologies. There's A Jewel in You Volume 2 and Unraveling the Layers, Memoirs of a Wounded Soul. And I'm also an empowerment speaker, among many other things, including a mom. So I talk about that a lot because people think I'm a kid, but I'm really not.
Absolutely, and you do have that baby face, so that just means you know what, you don't look like what you've been through, and we will
Amen.
touch upon that as we go through our conversation tonight. But let's start with the easy question, and it's a question that I ask every one of my guests on the Unstoppable Story Show, and that simply is: when you hear the word unstoppable, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so being unstoppable means to me that, life has obstacles, and no matter what obstacles present themselves, you don't stop. You do what it takes to overcome them. So, life obstacles, anything that tries to stop you or shut you down, you overcome that and you don't stop. Like some people give up. Giving up is not an option when you are unstoppable.
And you have truly had some life obstacles to deal with. And I want you to just take a few seconds, a few minutes, and share your story as to why Domestic Violence Awareness Month is so close to your heart.
Yeah, so when I was 5 years old, that was my first encounter with abuse. It was sexual abuse. And out of shame and out of fear, I didn't speak about it for at least 20 years. Uh, but having that first encounter with sexual abuse really set the foundation in my life for dysfunctional relationships. So I ended up getting into an unhealthy or toxic or abusive relationship when I was 17. And then again, once I got older, I got into another abusive relationship and bore two children out of the abuse. And when I went to my therapist to talk about the issues I had with depression and anxiety, she was able to help me uncover the root cause of what was really my issue, and that was the abuse. So once I got out of the abusive relationships, went through the therapy, got the counseling, it was important for me to not only survive, but also help other people come out and know that they could thrive beyond abuse, that life wasn't over just because of what happened to them.
Wow, we're talking to Whit Devereaux. She is the author of the book Not by My Own, as we shed light on Domestic Violence Awareness Month here in October. So if
Yeah.
you guys are in the comment room, feel free to throw out some questions. Definitely show Whit some love, send her some hearts, and share it, because we're gonna be talking about some very intense things tonight, but we also want you to understand that there is life even after domestic violence, and you can overcome and be unstoppable, just like Whit has. So, Whit, you mentioned that it started at a very young age, at the age of 5. How did you, at 5 years old, we haven't, or we hope that we haven't heard the word abuse.
Right.
But in at 5 years old, ex- not exactly, but how were you feeling with what happened to you at the age of 5, and then how did it shape you as you got older?
Well, with most issues of abuse at that age, is usually somebody that you know who did that to you. And I was afraid to speak on it, so I experienced fear. I experienced shame, feeling like I had something to do with what happened to me, that it was my fault. If I spoke out about it, I was afraid of the consequences of what might happen to me and that person. I was guilty of trying to protect the abuser like a lot of people do. So, in my lifetime of trying to date, once I got in high school and young adulthood, it was really hard for me to trust people. I struggled a lot with trusting, especially men or people in positions of authority, because people in position of authority had not protected me. So there was no trust, or trust was not something that I easily gave out. I pretty much put you through the ringer for you to earn my trust based on that. And then it also made me more open or susceptible to dysfunctional relationships because I didn't really know what love was, or what was healthy. There was a lot of confusion surrounding what happened to me. And as I mentioned, it wasn't until I actually went through the process of therapy that I figured out this is abuse. This is not your fault. And it's okay to talk about without feeling ashamed.
Now, we know that there are many different types of abuse, not just one specific thing uh, under domestic violence. Your abuse, was it physical, mental, verbal, emotional, or was it all of the above?
Well, really, it was all of the above at different stages of life and with different relationships. So, what the book focuses on is the physical aspects of abuse, mental and emotional. But I haven't wrote part two, but I will elaborate in part two on the other types of abuse that I had to go through, which included financial abuse as well.
Okay. So let's just bring the picture back up where the title of the book is Not by My Own. And that's based upon a scripture in the Bible, correct?
Absolutely. So I have the book here as well, Whit
Okay.
Devereaux from the APS Awards, and it's based off the scripture John 5:30. The Message version of the Bible states, "I can do nothing on my own, but by my Father who sent me." So when I was brainstorming titles for a book, that was one of the scriptures I was led to. And then rather than saying I can do nothing on my own, I just used the variation of not by my own.
So what exactly when you decided to use that title, what exactly were you trying to relay to yourself and ultimately to the people that were going to read the book?
Well, first to myself, I wanted, basically the only way that I made it out in my right mind and that I'm still able to function and go forward is because I wasn't alone through the whole process. And by that, I mean I had God on my side. He was able to walk me out of that situation, protect me from it becoming a deadly situation, protect me from my mind being lost. And so whenever people ask me, like, how did you get out? How did you get delivered? I always tell them it wasn't me, it was God. So, not by my own initially was something for me, just letting people know, hey, the only reason that I got out is nothing that I did on my own. But then I also wanted people to know you can get out too, and you're not alone. It's so much stigma that comes attached with uh, issues of domestic violence where people don't want to speak out about it because they feel it's an isolated situation or they're by themselves. But not by my own just lets you know you're not alone. It's not just you. Other people have made it out and you can make it out too.
Absolutely. We're talking to Whit Devereaux. She is the author of the book Not by My Own, and she is a domestic violence survivor, overcomer, and she is using this book as well as her website and her blogs to continue to send the message of overcoming and increasing your relationship with our Father in heaven. So we are so glad to have her on the show. Please come on in, swipe and share this information. We've got Catherine Young, who's in the house. We've got Andre Taylor, who's in the house. Lauren Harris says, congratulations on all you've overcome and achieved. So thank you, Lauren. We've got Lillian Salazar, who's watching, and we've got Donald Tolson that says, blessings to you all. So thank you guys. Continue to comment, ask some questions as we go through. So let's jump in to the book, because the book, when was the book first released with?
It was released June 17th of 2017.
Okay, so it's been over a year, about a year and a half. And what's been the response to the book so far?
It's been amazing. Initially, when I published the book, I just thought, this is something that I wanted to do. And continue living my regular life of working in healthcare. I didn't really think beyond just writing the book, but the book has birthed so much, and I get a lot of good feedback from people who have read the book, who are either in abusive relationships and needing to get out, or people who said, "Hey, I never talked about this, but because you spoke about it, I now want to share what happened with me." Even I was on another radio show talking about the book and my event, and a 75-year-old woman called in, and she hadn't talked about her abusive situation with anybody until hearing it with me on the radio, and she talked about it openly.
I,
So
I,
it's been amazing, you
oh,
know.
yeah, and I love what you couple of points that you just hit on. I want to roll back to, and I will do with the last point and then go before that. We never know who our story is going to touch. You know, my story may not touch you. Your story may not touch the person next to you. The next person's story may not touch someone else's story. But there's always somebody who was
Yeah.
part of our assignment. There was somebody who we were created in God's infinite wisdom in order to share this message, whether it's a message of unstoppability, like I talk about, or if it's a message of overcoming domestic violence, like you talk about. Each one of us has an assignment, and that assignment may not be for everybody. It may only be for that one person. So I'm so glad that you are hearing from those people that are your story is resonating with. But here's the question, because if you don't mind me asking, how old are you, Whit?
Oh, I'm 32.
32. So there are people that are 10 years older than you, 20 years older than you, 30 years older than you, that have never shared their story of abuse. Maybe they never shared it because in our families, we don't let our business out. Or maybe they never told their story because nobody would believe them. Or maybe they never told their story because they were thinking, well, this was God's way of punishing me for something else I did. But you, at the young age of 32, have stepped out, and you're talking about your story, and you've even put your story in a book. What gave you the strength to overcome all those other fears that other people have about telling their story? What gave you the strength to do it when others couldn't?
Well, I base everything off of Revelation 12:11. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. And when I was going through the abusive relationship, I pretty much begged God, and I made a promise with that. I begged him to get me out of it. And I asked him, like, if you get me out of this, and I'll make sure to tell everyone I know about what you did for me. And with that, I first started in my church ministry with serving their domestic violence ministry. And then God put it on my heart to finish this book, because I actually had been writing this since I was 17 years old. It's truly a labor of love. But when he told me to finish the book, that was just another part of me honoring my promise that I had made to God. So, like I said, I really didn't anticipate it to be a book that touched so many, but I have had a lot of feedback from people as young as 9 all the way to 70s who have read the book and who have shared with me how it impacted them or taught them what abuse is or what to look out for. And it's really just something that I said, I have to honor the promise that I made to God.
I love it. We're talking with Whit Devereaux. She's the author of the book Not by My Own. And she's also going to be having a wonderful event happening later on this month that we'll talk about as we go on into the show. But let's break down the book a little bit. There was 3 chapters that really stood out to you that you really wanted to talk about this evening. So I wanted to jump in on those 3 chapters and give you an opportunity to expound upon them. And the first one you talked about was on page 220, which talks about rededicated, right?
Yes. That
So
is
why is that one so important to you? Why is that chapter something that our audience really needs to look at?
so in the title of Rededicated, is basically like me giving my life back to God. But in that process, like I said, I went through therapy. And here's where I learned about the cycles of abuse. So on page 220, it's really breaking down what the cycle of abuse is, the 4 stages, the model, which is the honeymoon phase, which is when everything is peachy keen. You first get to know somebody and all is well. Then the tension building phase is when you have just a little bit of tension building. Maybe you had a disagreement or something, but you kind of ignore the signs, the warning signs that are there. Like maybe they called you out of your name, but you tried to downplay that. Then there's the explosion. That's where the actual occurrence of abuse happens. Sometimes it's physical, other times it might be mental, emotional, but that's where the abuse happens. And then you go into denial. And in this chapter of rededication, the character Devereaux was in denial after what happened with Bryce and his explosion. So a lot of times we find ourselves in this cycle of abuse because it just keeps going round and round and round. After you get out of the denial phase, like, oh, it wasn't that bad. It really didn't happen that way. Maybe I'm making a big deal out of it. And the person apologizes. Well, then you go back into the honeymoon phase. So being able to identify the cycle of abuse will allow you or help you to get out if you find yourself in that cycle, because you'll learn what it is and what you need to do to get out safely. Is the
What are
key.
those 4 cycles again?
Yeah,
Honeymoon.
the first one is the honeymoon phase, and then cycle number 2 is tension building. Then the stage 3 is explosion, and then stage 4 is denial.
So how about this? Just in your story, whether you're talking about the in the book, you talk about this young man that you meet that is different from any young man that you've ever met before. That you were introverted, but he brought some things out of you that you had
Right.
never experienced before. So how about let's go through those 4 stages of the cycle of abuse, just based upon that relationship that you talk about in the book. So we're talking about the honeymoon, the tension building, the denial, and then the fourth one is what again?
It's honeymoon phase, tension building, explosion. That's where the occurrence happens of
Okay.
abuse. Denial is the 4th stage.
Okay. So how about
So,
we talk about those as related to the book?
gotcha. So the main characters are Devereaux and Bryce. And Devereaux is quite different from Bryce. As Terrence stated, she's very introverted, shy, quiet, reserved. She comes from a 2-parent household. And Bryce, on the other hand, has a habitual criminal history, back and forth into like probation or the juvenile court system and all that, because they're teenagers at this time. And broken home. She feels like she can help him, but in the process of trying to help him, she finds herself in this cycle of abuse. Which a lot of times when you're trying to change people, you end up getting changed. So the honeymoon phase, when they first met at the taste tester event, and if you're from Chicago, you can about imagine what the taste tester event is. But the taste tester event is where they first met and they connected, they hit it off. She felt like she could, show him a different side and show him that you didn't have to break the law and do things that were going to get you in trouble. But there was some tension building. Even in the story, there's an incident where they're driving in the car, arguing back and forth, and then the explosion happens where Bryce takes the back of Devereaux's head and hits the steering wheel with it. But because of the love that Devereaux has for him, she is in denial that, he apologized. It wasn't that bad. Of course, people argue. We can get through this. But then it happens again and again and again. And you go back into the honeymoon phase where I'm apologizing now. I'm making things better. But then you get back into tension building where there are intense arguments with the name calling. The explosion could be, like I said, grabbing the back of Devereaux's head and hitting it into the steering wheel. Or it could be a slap or a punch or a kick, cussing you out, whatever it is, because abuse is so many different forms. And then denial is just the final stage before you start all over again.
So, and thank you for sharing that with me, because I think that's important for people who have never experienced domestic violence to understand that there is a cycle that people often ask, or, why do you go back? Why do you go back to that person if that person did to it? Oh, if he ever did that to me, I would like da 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 da, and I never go back. But for people who have never been in that situation, it's hard for them to believe that a person can go through those cycles. They can't believe that the person that they were dealing with in the honeymoon phase is now the person that they're dealing with in the explosion phase. And then
Right.
when you go through the denial phase, you still, in the back of your mind, are you thinking that you can still help this person or change this person that you're in a relationship with?
Yeah, or maybe they just won't do it again, that it was an isolated event, or they apologized and it's not going to happen anymore. Um, it's a lot of things. And in this particular story, Devereaux was hoping that, they had a child on the way and things of that nature, that would be enough to, like some people think that's enough to keep a relationship or make the relationship stronger, but that's definitely not the case, especially in an abusive relationship.
So now, as a empowerment speaker with Devereaux.com, what do you say when you speak to groups about the cycle of abuse? How do you talk to them about that? How do you talk to them about overcoming the cycle of abuse, or even recognizing that you're in the cycle of abuse?
Thanks for asking that. So right before this, I was actually on a master class that I was leading. I have a private community called Not by My Own Community, and I mentor and coach women who have been impacted by abuse. And I'm teaching them how to identify the warning signs. Tonight's specific class was about healthy relationships beyond abuse. But I wanted to first talk to them about what was healthy versus unhealthy. Because a lot of times when you are in an unhealthy relationship, you really don't know. You might think that this is normal. So I talk to them from personal experience, letting them know and being as transparent as possible. These are the things that I went through that was unhealthy: the name calling, the physical abuse, the isolation. Mine even got to the point of kidnapping. But it's very important for me to be transparent so I can let them know, like, hey, I've been where you are, and I am also now at a level that you can be at as well. So I talk to them about what is a healthy relationship. And then we compare that to what the Bible says about it, because everything I do is going to have Jesus in that, because that's who saved me. So we talk about
Absolutely.
the biblical part of it as well as the natural part of it. And then I tell them, if you are in an abusive relationship right now, then you need to contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and I always give them the number, which I'll give you guys right now. It's 1-800-799-7233, 1-800-799-7233. And the last four digits actually spell the word safe. So if you don't remember anything else, 1-800-799-SAFE is something that you can do to get immediate help 24/7 when I'm not available and when you don't feel like you can have anybody to talk to who won't judge you. These are people that can help you with getting out safely and getting continued resources and support so you can move forward. But yeah, the book actually birthed different things, and the community was one of them. So I'm able to have hands-on coaching with people inside of my group. And like tonight, I extended it to the public so people could know, hey, this is a resource that's available. You can join us on the inside if you'd like to.
Absolutely. Hey, and that's great information. And Catherine put it in the comment section. So definitely 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233. That is a great information to have and to share. And we're going to definitely make sure that is shared throughout this broadcast. You guys, we
Yeah.
see your questions down in the comments. We're going to get to them in a couple of minutes. But there was another part that you wanted to talk about in the book, and that was on pages 205 through 210. And we kind of just segued into that when we gave out the number, but you wanted to
Yeah.
talk about other resources that can help people who have been impacted by abuse. So what other resources did you want to share?
Yeah, so in the story, you actually see Devereaux going to a domestic violence agency, and they were helping her with establishing a restraining order. So sometimes it is necessary to implement a restraining order and to get legal services. A lot of times people who are financially abused say, well, hey, I can't afford it. But there are, like in Chicago, there's the Legal Assistance Foundation. At my church, we have lawyers on site. There are several different resources that you can get access to get out. And I want to make sure that people know and don't feel like their situation means that they have to stay stuck. So by calling that National Domestic Violence Hotline, since it's national, they'll be able to locate local resources wherever you are to get you connected and get you out of that situation, whether it be with the restraining order, getting a visitation, or if you have children, a custody agreement in place, getting some housing if you need to relocate. One of the things that I had to do, which is here in Illinois, is called the Safe Homes Act. It allows you to break your lease safely if you feel like you're in imminent danger. So sometimes people feel like, well, my lease don't end until next year. How I'm gonna leave everything I got? Well, there are resources through Legal Assistance Foundation, through the Safe Homes Act, through the National Domestic Violence Hotline that will allow you to get out safely and then rebuild your life where you're not doing it by yourself.
I love it. And I'm also a property manager, so I also am aware that there's a federal uh, mandate called the VAWA Act,
Yeah.
Violence Against Women's Act, and that also allows you, no matter what type of housing you are in, that allows you to get out of your lease if you are a victim of domestic violence. It gives you special preferences if you are a victim of domestic violence. And if you are part of a large apartment chain, then they have a responsibility once you inform them of that, once you exercise your rights through VAWA, to relocate you to another apartment within their properties if they can. So there are a number of different resources that are out there and available to victims of domestic violence. But we have to do like what you're doing with and actually continue to put that information out there so that any victim is aware of the options that they have available to them. Because would you say that a lot of victims remain victims
Yeah.
yet for the fact that they don't have that knowledge?
Yeah, a lot of it is lack of information. So, like, the only reason that I knew that I was even in an abusive relationship is because I went to get treated for depression. I didn't get treated for domestic violence directly. She pulled out the power and control wheel, and once I was describing to her what I was going through, she's like, well, the depression is really a result of the abuse. It's secondary as opposed to being primary. So a lot of times you don't know, and these things aren't readily available all the time. Like, I'm a researcher by nature. In my past life, I used to be in the paralegal and legal secretary, all that stuff. So I know how to research the laws and all that. But everybody doesn't have that information or that knowledge. So it really is lack of information or ignorance.
I love it. We're talking to Whit Devereaux. She's the author of the book Not By My Own. And that is really a great title. And it speaks to a lot of what you're going through and how you can get out of it. And it's important for people to know that you don't have to go through it alone. You don't have to be by your own, by yourself as you deal with situations like this. You can reach out to people like WIT. You can reach out to the National Domestic Violence number and get trained volunteers on the line to help you with support and resources. So don't feel like you've got to do it all by yourself. And that's, if you don't get anything else about this show this evening, I want you to leave with that. For any, if you're going through it, or if you know someone who's going through it, they don't have to go through it alone. They don't have to be by themselves, and it's not by my own.
That's
So
right.
we've got some comments. Let me just throw that up there. Tabitha says, if you are a victim of domestic violence, speak to someone. Ask for help. Don't be afraid or discouraged if the first or second person you speak to don't help you. Keep
Come
asking
on.
for help. You are not alone, and you can get help if people you can't and you can't get help if people don't know your needs. Absolutely, Tabitha. Thanks for sharing that information
Yes,
with
yes.
us. Yes, yes, yes. So we're going to do the third point, the third chapter that you really wanted to shine light on, and then we'll see if there's any other questions in the group. But the third one you talked about, and it's I love it, and you mentioned it a
Yeah.
little bit. It's the power and control wheel, and in the chapter called Surprise. So let's break that down a little bit more. What in the therapy world, they use this apparatus called the wheel. So for
Yeah.
you, as you were going through the therapy, why was the wheel so significant for you?
Well, I was in denial of what was going on. Remember, I went and got treated for depression, and this is when I find out, okay, based on what you are telling me, my therapist shows me this wheel, and it's much more than depression on its own. So by being able to see it, I'm a very visual person, but by being able to see the wheel and see at the center is the power and control, which is what the abuser seeks to have over anyone, ever the victim. And then on the outlining, it's showing you all the different forms of abuse. It really helped to open my eyes that this is what I was going through. A lot of times when you're in an abusive situation, you might minimize what you're going through, like, well, they only hit me one time, or oh, they just cussed me out, or you try to minimize it. But seeing it in black and white, literally, because it's a black and white wheel, and seeing it in writing, that helped me to put it together and really say, hey, I need to do something about this, because it's not just affecting me, but at this time I now have a child, and I don't want her to get stuck in the cycle of abuse or see me in that power and control wheel, and then now she finds herself in unhealthy relationships because it's been normalized between mom and dad.
So how old is your daughter now?
She's 13. She's old.
Congratulations. Have you you mentioned it? So have you seen any of the signs of that she might be affected by the cycle of abuse that you went through? Have you seen it manifest itself in her at all?
I have to say that she is a very gentle spirit. Um, she doesn't like a lot of noise. So if people are arguing, it really frightens her. She dealt with a lot of anxiety, and I put her in a counseling program and a modeling program to help with building confidence. And she's doing well. We had a little period where she struggled a little bit emotionally, but I got on it right away because working in mental health, because at one time I was in healthcare up until June. and then also receiving mental health treatment, I knew the importance of getting that taken care of right away instead of ignoring it and hoping she just bounce back or be resilient. Instead, I made sure that she got the resources and support so she can learn how to talk about it. I have an open dialogue with her. So if she has any questions about it, like something happened at school and she's like, Mommy, was that domestic violence? It was somebody was fighting. I'm like, no.
Right.
So we talk, but she is comfortable with asking me questions. And that's what I always wanted to be able to do when I was younger. So I make sure that my child feels that way with me.
Well, I congratulate you on taking those steps. Many people don't realize that abuse not just affects the person who's being abused, it affects
Right.
the family around them as well. And kids can only be what they see. And if they've seen this type of stuff as a young, at an early age, and they don't have anything else to counteract what they saw, then more than likely they will enter into that cycle of abuse as well. So I congratulate you on taking those proactive steps towards showing your daughter a different life and getting her involved in some different things to build her self-esteem and to build her confidence. And
Yes, thank you.
that leads into a question that Catherine Young asked. And that question is, do you plan to write any books for teens to help them deal with the cycle of abuse or to deal with encountering or experiencing domestic violence?
Thank you so much for that question. So actually the answer is yes. In November, that is the month that I always dedicate to writing books. So November, for those who don't know, is National Novel Writing Month. Is where I take a challenge to write 50,000 words in a month. So I've already started the manuscript, but that is going to be my focus. And my two daughters, because I have two, they actually want to help me with writing it. So it's going to be good. It's going to deal with self-esteem, healthy relationships, not just with boys and girls or, partners, but also with friendships. Because a lot of times people will, if they don't have good or positive self-esteem, they'll give in to peer pressure and a lot of other issues arise. So I want to deal with the whole child, and that should be out. I'm aiming for, because I want to have a book out a year. I'm aiming
Okay,
for 2019. Yes.
absolutely. Can't wait to read it. And I think it's a novel project, and I think bringing the family into the project is going to make it that much more powerful because they not only have it from your perspective, but they have it from the eyes of the child that went through it as well. So kudos to you. Can't wait to hear about it. And when you're ready to release it, check back with me so that we can get you on the show to talk about that book as well. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
But now you have something even more exciting that's happening at the end of this month, right? And it is a celebration for domestic violence survivors. Yes.
Yes, so we are hosting the first annual Not by My Own Domestic Violence Survivor Celebration, and it's October 27th here in Chicago. It is a private location because we have partnered with a domestic violence agency called the Wings Program. We want to make sure that all the participants feel safe. So only people who register will get the location details. But the reason that I wanted to have it be a celebration is because there's so much stigma attached to domestic violence. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. They suffer in silence and they stay stuck because they are ashamed. So I feel like if we celebrate the fact that there is life beyond abuse, that'll help to change the narrative. That'll help people feel like, hey, I'm an overcomer. I'm not a victim, because I like to shift the mindset from victim to victor, surviving to thriving. So it's going to be to celebrate life beyond abuse. And it's
I love
exciting.
it. From victim to victory, from surviving to thriving. I love it. So, what kind of things can they expect on this exciting afternoon of celebration?
So we have some different panelists who have experienced abuse. We have people who have experienced abuse from intimate partners to child abuse, and people who now have organizations where they are giving back. Um, we have Lesteiner Martinez. She's another award-winning author from APS who's going to be on the panel. We have Darnell Weathersby. He has a company that's all about breaking the cycle. And his shirt line, it says, "The cycle ends with me." We have Missy. Miss Missy is what she calls herself, and she is a domestic violence survivor. We also have C4, which is a mental health institution all over Chicago. So we want to talk about the mental health aspect. People who might be suffering with PTSD as a result of abuse will be able to get resources. People who might struggle with suicidal thoughts or suicidal attempts will be able to get resources. We also have different vendors who are going to be there. No Toxic People Allowed is one of them. And then we also have food, we have music. So it's going to be a good time. And I'm going to honor a very special survivor to me. She's going to be surprised because I didn't tell her, but I'm excited about honoring her because she's one of the people who is usually in the background, but I want to make sure she is highlighted as being victorious.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a phenomenal event. And again, you are just continuing to move to the next level of your greatness, from the book to the mastermind group to the first annual celebration. Congratulations on all your success. And you guys, you can see the information streaming across the screen at the bottom. The first annual Not By My Own Domestic Violence Survivors Celebration on October 27th from 2 to 5 p.m. You can go to the link to get all the details about how you can sign up and get information on the private location. We're not giving that information out to the public because we all understand that we are dealing with victims of domestic violence. And it's one thing I know about domestic violence: the abusers always look for an opportunity to continue the abuse. So safety is our priority as far as this event. We still want to celebrate, but we want to make sure that the people that are there to be celebrated aren't also looking over their shoulders and feeling like they're in an unsafe situation. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That is spot on. We want everybody to feel safe. Of course, there'll also be security there, but I want them to really feel like they can let their hair down and just enjoy themselves for the time that they're there. They don't have to worry about anything, but just getting resources to go from surviving to thriving.
Absolutely. Well, Whit, I am so glad that we were able to reschedule and get you on the show. What you're doing is fabulous. I'm so glad that we've had the opportunity to meet, and I'm looking forward to collaborating with you on some future events going into 2019. We here at the Unstoppable Story Show, we believe in causes, and you definitely have a worthy cause that is worth more attention and more notoriety, so that people who are struggling with the cycles of abuse or who are dealing with trying to overcome domestic violence know that there's a voice out there like yours, and that there's an organization out there that can help them do just that. So I appreciate you. I congratulate you. And we're going to give you the opportunity to give us some final thoughts, either about your book, about the event that's coming up, or just how they can get in contact with Whit if they want to have a closer conversation with you.
Absolutely. So thank you, Terrence, for having me on the Unstoppable Story Show. I think this is amazing. I want you all to stay connected with me so you can find out all the different things that are going on, from the book to the events to the coaching to the blog and more. And the best way to do that is by going to my website, which is Whit, W-H-I-T, Devereaux, all together, D like dog, E like elephant, V like Victor, E like elephant, R like Robert, E like elephant, A like apple, U like up, and X like X-ray. So whitdevereaux.com. And that way you can get on my email list and you won't miss a thing. And if you're here in Chicago, you want to go to notbymyown.eventbrite.com. There you can register and or donate to the Wings program using that link, notbymyown.eventbrite.com.
Fantastic. Whit Devereaux, you guys, author of the book Not By My Own, and the the creator of the first annual Not By My Own Domestic Violence Survivors celebration that's happening on October 27th. We appreciate you, Whit. Where can they get the book?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon if you want a signed copy. And I'm running a sale for the month of October in honor of Domestic Violence Survivor Celebration. You can get that exclusively on whitdevereaux.com.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Whit. We're going to send you back down to the green room. Don't hang up yet, though, because I want to talk to you a little bit more. But again, we appreciate you and everything you're doing for survivors of domestic violence. And God bless you for your journey and now how you are using your journey to tell your story so that you can help other people save their lives. And you truly are unstoppable. So thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
All right. That was Whit Devereaux, you guys. So great testimony talking about domestic violence, the cycles of abuse, how you can be a victor instead of a victim, how you can still thrive despite what you've gone through instead of just survive. So definitely you want to get your copy of the book Not By My Own. As she said, it's on Amazon.com, and she is running a special now, so you can get more information about that. But it's definitely one of those books that if you know somebody or if you are that somebody, then you need to read it so that you can learn how that you can move past and be unstoppable too. Well, hey, that's our show tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in to the special edition of the Unstoppable Story Show with Terrence Lefters. Again, I don't take this lightly that you take time from your Thursday evening or your Tuesday evenings when we're regularly on to see quality programming that you can't get on the mass medias. You won't find this on in Chicago on 257 32 or 50. You know, you won't find this on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, or MSNBC, but you will find this here. You will find this here on Facebook each and every Tuesday night, the Unstoppable Story Show, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. So I hope you will come back each and every week and that you'll tell a friend about the Unstoppable Story Show. And I just want to leave you with this. Don't get caught up in the cycle of abuse. The cycle that says that everything is great like a honeymoon, and then you ignore the tension that you can see with your mind's eye, that you can probably feel with your body. Don't get caught up in the explosion. Don't put yourself in that situation where you're anywhere around when the explosion occurs, because anytime something explodes, there's a lot of collateral damage. And please, please, please don't deny that you're in this situation. Don't deny that nothing's wrong. Don't get caught up in the ideal of that you can change anybody for the better or for the worse. Get out of that cycle. Don't be the hamster in the wheel, going through the same thing over and over and over again. There's a quote that says that if you do the same thing over and over and over again, but you expect a different result, then yeah, that's insanity. Stop the insanity. Keep moving forward, because you've got a life to live. You've got something else ahead of you than what you're dealing with right now. Keep moving. Keep surviving. and absolutely keep being unstoppable. Until next week, you guys, wherever you are in the world today, we'll be back on at our regularly scheduled time, Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time. But wherever you are in the world today, you know what I say. Don't just make it a great day, make it an unstoppable day. Take care.